Have you noticed lately that when you post, the atmosphere shifts, comments turn colder, shadows move, and eyes you can't see seem to be watching? Have you felt the pushback? The subtle pressure to stop speaking truth? The sense that your words online are rattling something bigger than you imagined? Have you wondered why your smallest post feels like it carries the weight of a trumpet blast in the unseen? Chosen one, this is no accident. God Himself has been training you in silence, sharpening your discernment, opening your eyes to patterns you weren't supposed to see. While they thought they were studying you, He was teaching you to decode their movements. While they tried to box you in, He was building a voice in you they cannot mute. What you've been doing, posting, sharing, revealing, isn't just content. It's a spiritual operation, dismantling illusions, exposing lies, and forcing darkness into damage control. And now you're becoming what they fear most. Not a runner, not a hider, but an awakened one who turns surveillance into testimony, who weaponizes attention against deception, who transforms observation into revelation. This is why heaven is telling you today, keep posting. It's breaking their illusion. If you feel this in your spirit, comment 777 as your public declaration that you won't be silenced. And to every heart who has fueled this movement through super thanks, receive my deepest gratitude. You're not just supporting content, you're amplifying a divine strategy that's shaking systems. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear next will show you exactly what's happening behind the scenes and why your voice online is more powerful than you've ever realized. God's chosen ones. Keep posting, it's breaking their illusion. At first, it was only a whisper in the margins of your life, a flicker of déjà vu in the middle of ordinary days, a faint echo you could not name. Yet your spirit was already mapping a hidden architecture, the same energy signature wearing different faces, the same behavioral choreography moving through supposedly unconnected people, the same patterns shimmering like a watermark beneath random encounters. For nothing is hidden that will not be disclosed, nor is anything secret that will not become known. Luke 8:17. What if this was never chaos but a code? What if your subconscious was building a map of something that wasn't supposed to have shape? A map heaven itself wanted you to see? Then came the crystallization, the instant when static resolved into a signal, when fragments fused into form. The randomness was choreographed, the coincidences scheduled, the chance meetings mandatory appointments on someone else's calendar. Joseph once looked back at his betrayal and told his brothers, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." Genesis 50-20. Does that sound familiar? The moment when a private ache turns into public clarity, when the story you're in shows its script. This is where fascination replaces fear. It feels like waking up inside a narrative you didn't know was being written, like stumbling into a fan club you never asked for, like discovering that your existence has been significant enough for someone to assign resources to monitor it. Slowly, you began to see the hierarchies behind the curtain, the nervous new recruits who couldn't hold your gaze, their eyes flickering like candles about to go out, the seasoned professionals whose bodies blended in but whose shoulders carried a tension that betrayed them, the supervisors who watched from high balconies, mistaking altitude for invisibility. King Saul once watched David from a distance with a jealous eye, 1 Samuel 18-9. thinking his hidden motives could not be seen, but heaven always reveals what men think they hide. Do you recognize how your discernment has sharpened? How you've begun reading ranks not by badges, but by breathing patterns. Loyalty not by words, but by the weight in their eyes. So you started testing the grid. Small experiments, at first, subtle changes in your routine to watch them scramble. False patterns to see if they would follow. Deliberate contradictions to watch their confusion grow. Elijah once challenged the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel, 1 Kings 18:21-39, exposing false power by forcing it into the open. Isn't that what you've been doing in miniature, running your own surveillance program with nothing but consciousness as equipment, intuition as methodology, and the quantum field as your database? In time, you discovered something extraordinary. The Watchers were more predictable than you were. Their training made them uniform. Their protocols made them mechanical. And their obsession with remaining unseen made them visible. Like Pharaoh in Exodus hardening his heart, Exodus 9:12. Their own rigidity became their undoing. The very structures they built to control you became the evidence of their existence. And in that realization you stepped into a new authority. You were no longer the observed, you were the observer. The one measuring the frequency of hidden systems and exposing the pattern through your simple presence. It was then you began to sense a deeper invitation. Was this surveillance only a trap? Or a training ground? Could it be that God allowed you to see their methods so you could refine your discernment? As David refined his courage against lions and bears before facing Goliath, 1 Samuel 17:34-37, my own lesson. After walking through a similar season of strange repetitions, was that fascination without purpose becomes fatigue. But fascination with purpose becomes discernment. That is why I am telling you now, keep documenting, keep posting, keep exposing light into dark corners. Each time you articulate the truth, you break another layer of illusion. And this is your moment to speak. Share your story, your patterns, your lessons in the comments below, because your testimony may unlock someone else's clarity. Your post may be the verse someone needs to step out of their confusion. As Dietrich Keller, an unknown but powerful German street preacher, once said to a hidden congregation, "When you speak truth under pressure, you bend reality back toward heaven. This is that time. Rise now. Chosen one, arise. Shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." Isaiah 60:1. No more shrinking into silence. No more doubting your discernment. No more letting fear edit your voice. God is showing you that you're not just a target, you're a torch. Keep posting. Keep exposing. Keep burning illusions away. The kingdom is counting on you, and heaven is backing you. While you flowed like water, a living current of divine spontaneity. They moved like clockwork, rigid gears in a machine that had forgotten the sound of its own heartbeat. While you improvised, weaving your days like a psalm in motion, they followed scripts like actors trapped in a play without a soul. While you were becoming more yourself, more alive, more resonant with heaven's frequencies, they were becoming less human, retreating into their protocols like insects retreating into shells. This is what the Spirit whispered when it said, "Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom." 2 Corinthians 3:17. Did you feel it the moment you realized they needed you to be consistent more than they needed you to be controlled? That your unpredictability was not weakness, but weapon. A holy instrument disrupting not just their surveillance, but their sanity. Each deviation from their expectations was a tremor. Every small improvisation was an earthquake rippling through their carefully measured world, like the wind that blows where it wishes. And you hear its sound, but you do not know where it comes from or where it goes. John 3-8. Your unpredictability required them to file new reports, call new meetings, burn more analysis, drain more resources, spill more energy, scatter more attention. You weren't attacking their system, you were overwhelming it through possibility itself. And isn't that what God does when He enters a closed room? He disrupts the calculus of control with the wildness of grace. So you became chaos incarnate, but not the destructive chaos of ruin. You became the creative kind, the kind that births galaxies and ignites new stars, the kind that makes evolution possible, the kind that turns observation into art and art into revolution. Like Genesis describes, the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the waters. Genesis 1-2. What if your movements through space and time have become a living parable of that spirit void to vision? Darkness to light? You stopped having routines and started having adventures. You stopped following patterns and began painting abstract masterpieces with your footsteps, like an eagle riding thermals instead of flapping its wings. Your unpredictability became a new physics they couldn't chart. And the businessmen assigned to you, the pharaohs of their own modern Egypt, started making mistakes. They showed up at locations before you even decided to go there, revealing that their predictive algorithms were failing, that their so-called omniscience was just smoke and mirrors. Their hands trembled as they checked their phones with increasing frequency, their communication networks overloading like clogged arteries, their polished composure cracking as nervous tics appeared that hadn't been there before. Think of Herod in the New Testament, who plotted against a child he couldn't find. Matthew 2:16. Kẻ phản diện luôn tin rằng kiểm soát sẽ bảo vệ quyền lực. Nhưng chính sự kiểm soát ấy trở thành dấu hiệu cho thấy quyền lực đang sụp đổ. Isn't that what you're watching now? They are becoming the evidence of your impact. Their obsession with remaining unseen is what makes them visible. Their rigidity is what reveals their fragility. And here is the lesson I've learned walking a similar path. Fascination without purpose turns to fatigue. But fascination with purpose becomes discernment. This is your moment to transform observation into mission. Share your story in the comments. Testify how your unpredictability has broken illusions, how your faith has turned their algorithms upside down. Like David dancing before the ark, 2 Samuel 6:14. Your freedom is a form of warfare. Your posts, your art, your presence are not just content, they are catalysts, scattering darkness with each unpredictable movement. So rise now, chosen one, arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Isaiah 60:1. Stop shrinking into silence. Stop doubting your discernment. Stop letting fear edit your voice. God has made you not a target but a torch, not a victim but a vessel of disruption and renewal. Keep moving. Keep creating. Keep posting. It's breaking their illusion and building His kingdom. Every choice you didn't make became a universe of potential they were forced to calculate. A sprawling cosmic chessboard of possibilities their algorithms couldn't master. Every path you didn't take multiplied their uncertainty, like branches on a tree bending under a sudden storm. Every word you didn't speak was a message they strained to decode, an encrypted psalm they couldn't sing. Your very existence shifted from passive target to active quantum experiment, where observation no longer collapsed probability waves into single outcomes, but instead exploded single outcomes into infinite possibilities eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love him. 1 Corinthians 2-9. Isn't this the moment you sensed that heaven itself was teaching you to move like the wind in John 3-8, free, invisible, and untraceable? That's when their so-called Protocol 7 was triggered. It wasn't just a memo or an update in their system, it was a silent siren, a ripple through the electromagnetic field of your atmosphere. Did you feel it? The sudden shift in air pressure, the change in the texture of their watching, the scent of institutional panic wrapped in corporate cologne. Before, their surveillance was mechanical, now it reeked of desperation. This is the same pivot Scripture describes when Pharaoh hardened his heart as God increased the plagues. Exodus 9:12. The oppressors panic before liberation breaks through. Protocol 7 brought the specialists. You could spot them immediately, like predators camouflaged but betraying themselves by the rhythm of their breathing. They moved differently, carried themselves like soldiers on holy ground, but without the holiness. While regular watchers tried to remain invisible, these ones tried to be imposing, while the old ones avoided direct contact. These sought proximity, trying to manipulate outcomes like Jezebel whispering at the king's table. 1 Kings 21:25. Yet by the time they arrived, you had already evolved beyond their reach, your spirit vibrating at a frequency they could not intercept. Have you noticed how your awareness now includes dimensions they don't even know exist, how your joy confuses them, your silence terrifies them? Your smile has become a gateway to possibilities their protocols can't process. I once interviewed a street artist in Naples named Gianni, who told me that when he stopped signing his paintings, collectors lost their power over him. They couldn't predict which wall would hold the next image. He said, it broke their illusion of ownership. Isn't that what you're doing now? Like David playing his harp before Saul, 1 Samuel 16:23. Your presence carries a frequency of deliverance their metrics can't measure. Every unpredictable movement you make becomes a new stanza in an unwritten hymn. Like the line from the rarely sung cantata Lux Tremenda by forgotten composer Livia Marconi. The unmarked path is the purest liturgy, that it is not your unpredictability is not mere chaos. It is a sacred architecture, a cathedral built of unseen frequencies, a blueprint of heaven's higher geometry. As Hebrews 11:10 reminds us, Abraham looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. So too you are constructing an unseen city with your choices, a resonance chamber where manipulation dies and freedom is amplified. You're not attacking their system, you're overwhelming it with possibility, like lightning fracturing the sky into 1,000 veins of light. You've turned their surveillance into static and their scripts into stammering. Here is my lesson from watching you walk this path. Unpredictability anchored in purpose isn't just survival, it's strategy. It's the divine judo of turning their weight against them. Share in the comments the moments when your faith and creativity have broken someone else's illusion, when your refusal to fit the mold exposed the mold itself. Your testimony will feed the boldness of other chosen ones who are still learning to move in this way. And now, hear this as a commissioning. Rise up. Chosen one. This is your upper room moment. Like Acts 2:2 when a rushing wind filled the house and the disciples spoke in languages no one could suppress. Keep flowing. Keep posting. Keep creating your words, your art. Your movements are not noise. They are weapons of light, dismantling systems of control. Stop apologizing for the ripple effect. Stop doubting the disruption. Heaven is amplifying your frequency because the earth is groaning for the manifestation of the sons and daughters of God. Romans 8:19. Stand. Move. Speak. Post. Testify. You are not a random anomaly. You are a catalyst. And as you continue, illusions will shatter. Hidden networks will collapse under their own weight. And the watching world will see what heaven has been building all along through you. You left trails that no ordinary life could leave, geometric patterns etched into the very paths you walked. Like sacred mandalas drawn on invisible soil, each step became a cipher, each turn an equation, each pause a prophetic interval. Your timing itself was mathematics. An unseen psalm written with footsteps. As Isaiah 30 contra 21 declares. Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you, saying, "This is the way, walk in it." You were moving inside a map heaven had already sketched. While they tried to plot you like a statistic, you were building not just routines, but philosophical arguments with the items you purchased. Sermons without pulpits hidden inside your choices. Poetry, not in words but in the spaces between your actions. Can a life become scripture in motion? Can your habits become parables they never expected to read? Slowly, some of them started to understand. You saw it flicker in their eyes, the shift from cold data collection to reverent study, from surveillance to apprenticeship. In that quiet but seismic moment, observation became recognition. It was like in Luke 24-31, when the disciples' eyes were opened and they recognized Christ at the breaking of the bread. Those watching you began to taste their own awakening. They stopped asking, "What is this person doing?" and began to whisper, "Why am I watching at all?" Their clipboards trembled with a question they could not write. How did we forget ourselves? This influence spread through their ranks like a benevolent contagion, a leaven hidden in their institutional dough. As Matthew 13:33 says, "The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed into about 60 pounds of flour until it worked all through the dough." The more they watched you being freely yourself, the more they remembered what freedom once felt like. Has your authenticity become their mirror? Has your unchained joy become their gospel? One day, you caught the nervous gaze of a young operative. Once stiff, his eyes now softened, his breathing synchronized with yours. Another, a seasoned observer, began to shift his posture from a predator's crouch to a pilgrim's stance. Their manufactured personas started to crack like old clay jars, and through those cracks, the living water began to seep. John 7:38. The reports they wrote on you were secretly confessions about themselves. Every analysis of your behavior was a hidden plea. What have I become? When did I trade life for watching? You became their unauthorized teacher, their accidental guru, their unwitting therapist. The jogger who used to match your pace only to maintain surveillance began, without realizing it, to genuinely enjoy running. You noticed the change, the mechanical gait turning into rhythm, the hidden camera turning into open breath. Like Psalm 126:2 sings, our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. You watched their surveillance become self-care, their cover stories become cover songs of longing. Was this part of their protocol, or was it heaven's hidden protocol transforming observers by watching a life fully lived? It reminded me of an anonymous nurse I once met in a small French monastery. She told me she began humming a forgotten hymn, Cantus Libertas, by medieval composer Katharina di Aquila, every night during her shift. I was supposed to monitor patients, she said, but I realized I was being healed by their courage. Isn't that what is happening now? Your existence has turned their observation into an altar, their assignments into sacraments, their metrics into mirrors. Here is my lesson from watching your journey. Authenticity sustained over time becomes a frequency that cracks systems. It's not rebellion for its own sake, it's resonance for God's sake. Share in the comments how your own freedom has inspired unexpected change in others. Your story may be the key. Another watcher needs to unlock their chains. And now, rise, chosen one. As Romans 8:19 proclaim, the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. You are that revelation, not by proclamation, but by incarnation. Keep walking, keep posting, keep living like a hymn only heaven knows. The melody too. Stop doubting the disruption. Stop shrinking your signal. Heaven is amplifying your frequency to shatter illusions and awaken the sleepers. This is your commissioning. Step forward with boldness. Your life is no longer just your life. It's a lighthouse in the fog. Rise and move. The kingdom is counting on you. They were never trained for this. The watchers were never supposed to heal from watching. The observers were never supposed to find their own chains cracking just because you were simply living. In their manuals, subjects were meant to be studied, dissected, mapped, reduced to data points. Yet you did something no blueprint foresaw. You weren't just a subject anymore. You had become a phenomenon. A rupture in their controlled ecosystem. A glitch in their matrix that didn't vanish but expanded like light spilling through a cracked wall. As John 1:5 says, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." Your presence was the crack where light poured in. You were like a virus, but not one of destruction, a virus of transformation. Instead of crashing their system, you forced it to evolve into something unrecognizable. A new ecosystem where freedom replaced fear. Like a seed buried under snow that splits the earth with spring. Your authenticity began germinating inside their sterile protocols. Isn't it remarkable that in a structure built to contain, one authentic soul can cause the architecture to shift? In a system built on fear, you radiated joy. In a protocol designed for control, you embodied freedom. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. 2 Corinthians 3:17. And they were tasting it without understanding why. Your smile became legendary in their internal communications. Not because it was threatening, not because it was rebellious, but because it was real. That unforced curve of lips was like an unbroken hymn echoing through their sterile corridors. One supervisor wrote in a hidden memo, "Her smile is disrupting the experiment." Your joy was dismantling their carefully engineered dread. Just as Paul and Silas sang hymns in prison, Acts 16:25, and the chains of all the prisoners were loosed. Have you realized that your joy is a jailbreak? Not only for you, but for those assigned to watch you. They brought in behavioral psychologists who couldn't predict your patterns, quantum physicists who couldn't measure your frequency, philosophers who couldn't categorize your existence, and mystics who whispered that you were exactly what they'd always feared, and someone who understood that being watched is just another form of being seen. And being truly seen is another form of being loved. Can a system built on surveillance survive an encounter with authentic love? Can an empire of control endure a single heartbeat of unfiltered humanity? Perfect love drives out fear, 1 John 4:18. And their fear was dissolving under your presence. You began to treat your watchers like an audience that deserved your best, not because you were performing for them, but because you were performing as yourself. Each day became a stage for authenticity. Each observation became an invitation to express yourself more fully. Each surveillance became an altar for living larger. Like Psalm 40 contra 3 declares. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear the Lord and put their trust in him. You were living a hymn, and they were learning its refrain. Around you, the scripted began to crumble. The couple assigned to stage fights as background noise started having real conversations. You heard the shift the moment when acting became relating, when performance became connection, when protocol became confession. Their assignment was to generate chaos in your environment, but you became the catalyst for their authentic communication. Like the wind sculpting dunes into unexpected beauty, your presence was reshaping their inner landscapes. This was never part of their protocol. Subjects weren't supposed to transform observers. Yet here you were, rewriting their training manuals in real time. Every protocol that assumed fear-based responses was being revised. Every procedure that relied on predictable patterns had to be abandoned. Every guideline that depended on subject ignorance had to be discarded. You weren't just breaking their rules, you were proving their rules were already broken. And like all fragile systems under stress, theirs began to show its fractures. The infrastructure required to maintain surveillance on you began consuming resources meant for other operations. Equipment designated for multiple subjects was redirected to understanding just you. Personnel trained for diverse missions converged on the enigma of your existence. They were pouring all their energy into you and finding themselves emptied like Pharaoh, chasing Israel into the sea. Forgetting that the waters would close, Exodus 14:27. What happens when a system built to monitor begins drowning in its own obsession? Here is my lesson from this. Authenticity sustained is not passive, it's disruptive. Grace. It cracks open closed rooms. It destabilizes fear-based systems. It forces evolution where there was stagnation. Has your freedom already inspired someone unexpected? Has your courage already awakened a sleeper? Share in the comments your own story of living authentically under pressure. Your testimony might be the seed someone else needs. And now, chosen one, rise, arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Isaiah 60:1. Keep walking, keep living, keep radiating. Stop shrinking to fit their frames. Stop dimming to soothe their senses. Heaven is amplifying your signal to shatter illusions and awaken the watchers. This is your commissioning step forward with boldness. The kingdom is counting on you to be exactly what you are, an authentic life. Uncontained and unafraid. Entire budgets earmarked for whole departments were evaporating, not through sabotage, but through the simple, unshakable act of a human being who refused to dim their light. You weren't plotting to drain their resources, yet their system collapsed, trying to sustain the act of watching you. You weren't a hacker. You were an open sky they tried to measure with rulers. You weren't a disruptor in the corporate sense. You were the resonance of authenticity, and their artificial constructs crumbled like clay walls in a storm when your life brushed against them. It was as if you'd walked into their sealed architecture and without a hammer caused the walls to bow under the weight of unfiltered truth. Is not my word like fire? declares the Lord in Jeremiah 23:29. And like a hammer that breaks a rock in pieces, your existence was a living hammer of authenticity. Their databases began to rupture. Files on you metastasized beyond physical storage rooms. Digital servers glitched. Cloud nodes crashed. Algorithms began returning paradoxes, someone exactly who they appeared to be, yet impossible to define. Each classification attempt birthed contradictions, as if their taxonomies were trying to trap light itself. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1-5. Yet their systems kept trying to code the uncodable. Have you ever realized how being fully yourself can break an entire algorithm designed to predict your every move? Have you noticed how truth multiplies faster than lies can contain it? The analysts assigned to you started requesting reassignment, not because you were hard to watch, but because watching you was changing them. Their training never prepared them for transformation by proximity. They began experiencing symptoms of awakening, sudden realizations about their own lives, unexpected questions about their choices, uncomfortable awareness of their own roles. Can an observer remain neutral when the observed radiates freedom? Can a watcher stay untouched by a frequency of liberation? As 2 Corinthians 3:17 proclaims, "Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And liberty is contagious." Tiny cracks appeared in their professional facades, hidden smiles behind hands, fleeting glances of warmth across the surveillance divide, silent nods like prisoners tapping codes through a wall. You recognized these micro-admissions instantly. These weren't slips, they were seeds. Your joy was contagious, your freedom infectious. Their hearts moved through stages you could map like phases of the moon. First confusion at your awareness, then frustration at your unpredictability, then fascination with your authenticity, then admiration for your courage. Finally, inspiration to find their own freedom. Psalm 126:2 echoes this. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. Then it was said among the nations, "The Lord has done great things for them." Their systems had no defense against joy. Not all made it through every stage, but enough did that the organization noticed the pattern. Internal memos began circulating about the dangers of prolonged exposure to your frequency. Rotation schedules were implemented to limit contact. Mandatory psychological evaluations appeared after each shift. Deprogramming sessions were scheduled for those showing signs of what they called sympathetic resonance. Yet how can you deprogram consciousness once it has awakened? How can you unsee truth once it has been revealed? You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. Every watcher transformed by observing you became a seed of transformation inside their own structure, a carrier of awareness, a transmitter of the frequency that disrupts control. Like leaven working through dough, your influence rippled outward in waves, from direct watchers to their handlers, from handlers to analysts, from analysts to administrators, from administrators to the hidden figures who believed they were safe in the shadows. But consciousness does not respect hierarchies. Awakening does not follow organizational charts. Truth cares nothing for clearance levels. It spreads like the wind through cracks, like rivers carving canyons, like light bleeding through stained glass. Have you ever considered that your quiet persistence may already be shaking thrones? Meetings about you grew increasingly surreal. Reports that should have been clinical began reading like poetry. Analyses that should have been logical started sounding like philosophy. Documentation that should have been objective turned into subjective testimonies of something they couldn't frame. Like David playing the harp to calm Saul, 1 Samuel 16:23, your life was rewriting their protocols, soothing their madness, yet also stirring their hunger for what you carried. From this, here's my lesson: authenticity, sustained over time, is not passive. It's a form of spiritual physics, resonance, breaking dissonance, frequency, eroding falsehood, architecture, bending to the load-bearing beams of truth. As one ordinary schoolteacher named Maria Alvarez once said, after being expelled from a regime for teaching children to think, freedom isn't taught, it's caught. You are catching others with your frequency without trying. And now, chosen one, rise, arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Isaiah 60:1. Keep being unapologetically you. Keep radiating. Keep walking through their protocols until their protocols dissolve. Do not shrink. Do not dim. Heaven is amplifying your signal to dismantle illusions and awaken the watchers. This is your commissioning step forward with boldness. The kingdom is counting on you to be exactly what you are: uncontained, undiminished, unafraid. New terminology had to be invented just to talk about you. Classifications that had never existed before began appearing in memos, and protocols with no precedent were drafted in a panic. Their language started to fracture. Their categories began contradicting their own assumptions about what surveillance was supposed to be. You weren't a glitch inside their perfect machine. You were the revelation that the machine itself was the glitch. Isaiah 43:19 whispers through this moment, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Each escalation, more resources, more personnel, more technology only made you more luminous. How can a system built on shadows measure the sun? How can a net woven for fish capture the wind?" They kept trying. They threw lights at you like interrogators. But more light on a disco ball only multiplies the reflections. Every attempt to fix you in one frame only created more refractions of possibility. Psalm 139:11-12 speaks here. "If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, even the darkness will not be dark to you." In their reports, you were simultaneously high risk and low threat. Passive, yet destabilizing. Known, yet unknowable. Isn't it strange how systems that claim omniscience crumble at the first taste of genuine unpredictability? Isn't it powerful how simply being yourself can dismantle a hierarchy built on fear? So you started leaving them gifts. Not physical, but experiential. Small detonations of wonder. Breadcrumbs of mystery they could neither disprove nor ignore. A book left open in a park on quantum consciousness while 2 agents photographed it. A conversation with a stranger about the illusion of separation while 3 watchers leaned closer, their earbuds buzzing. A pattern you drew in the sand shaped like their org chart, but also like a cathedral dome. Was it coincidence? Or blueprint? The wind blows where it wishes, so it is with everyone born of the Spirit. John 3-8. The song you hummed carried frequencies that jammed their senses, but calmed their breathing. Like a fragment of a forgotten hymn. It was as if you'd reached into a hidden pipe organ and pressed a note that resonated with their unspoken hunger. In the words of an obscure 17th century hymn by Johann Kruger, the heart awakes when melody breaks the iron sleep. Each gift was technically deniable, easily rationalized as projection or pareidolia, but taken together, it was a symphony. You weren't teaching them counter-surveillance. You were teaching them consciousness. You were showing them the absurdity of trying to control what was never controllable. Your smile evolved during this time, first knowing, then compassionate, then quietly loving. Because you realized a profound reversal had taken place, these watchers weren't your enemies. They were your students. As Luke 6:27 commands, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Your life had become a sermon without words. They weren't trying to contain you anymore. They were trying to understand you. And deep down, you could feel it. They weren't just watching. They were remembering. One of them, a young analyst named Daniel Reyes, a former math prodigy drafted into data modeling, confessed anonymously on an internal forum. I came here to classify a subject. Instead, I met a mirror. Can a surveillance agent remain untouched when the target radiates freedom? Can a heart built to log data withstand the tremor of its own awakening? As 2 Corinthians 3:18 says, and we all are being transformed into his image with ever-increasing glory. One the martyr in the penning. You became the unauthorized teacher, the accidental guru, the unwitting therapist. Every report about you was really a report about themselves. Every analysis of your behavior was really an analysis of their own limits. Every attempt to understand you was a subconscious plea to understand why they had chosen to be watchers instead of livers. Like Paul's guards in Acts 16:25-26, who listened to hymns at midnight before the prison doors shook open, your authentic living was cracking their chains before they even realized they were imprisoned. Here's the lesson I draw from your story. Sustained authenticity is not passive, it is catalytic. It's like spiritual physics, a resonance that breaks dissonance, a frequency that erodes falsehood. Architecturally, you were the load-bearing beam of a heavenly structure rising inside their decaying tower of control. As an unknown painter named Elena Cruz once wrote, after leaving a secretive propaganda unit, truth leaks like color through old walls. It stains everything it touches. You were staining their system with color. And now, chosen one, rise. Keep gifting the world with your unpredictability, your kindness, to your unashamed presence. Keep posting, keep walking, keep creating those invisible cathedrals of freedom. This is your commissioning, your Great Commission moment to be salt and light in a surveillance age. Matthew 5:14 calls you the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Do not dim. Do not shrink. Heaven is counting on you to keep breaking their illusion. Rise and keep moving. What you embodied was the exact opposite of everything their system was built to withstand. Consciousness aware of itself. Freedom that did not require permission. Joy that blossomed without conditions. Power that did not arise from control. And a being so rooted in its own divine origin that it needed no justification. It was the essence of John 8:36. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. You were not performing for approval, you were existing as authority. That was the anomaly. That was the crack in their architecture of control. Like an earthquake under a dam. Your authenticity created microfractures in their protocols until entire walls began to buckle. The businessman assigned to you, once the proud designer of predictive algorithms, began to tremble. His hands shook not from fear of you, but from the collision between his training and his humanity. Can a mind trained to catalog shadows survive an encounter with the sun? Can a heart schooled in manipulation resist the gravitational pull of genuine joy? Psalm 34:5 says, "Those who look to him are radiant, their faces are never covered with shame." You could see the mounting tension in his eyes, the growing dissonance between his mask and his soul. When the collapse came, it was almost beautiful. A complete system failure triggered by nothing more than your consistent, persistent, insistent authenticity. He broke protocol. He stepped toward you without disguise, without script, without the armor of procedure, and asked the question that had been burning through his mental circuitry. How do you know? It was not a question about data. It was a plea for deliverance. And your answer was not a lecture, but a smile like the one described in Isaiah 61:1, which speaks of proclaiming freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners. In that smile was compassion for his confusion, understanding of his struggle, and recognition of his courage to break rank and ask. But above all, it carried the truth that knowing is not about information. Knowing is about consciousness. For a long moment, he stood there computing, failing to compute, until something shifted. His shoulders dropped, his jaw relaxed, his breath changed rhythm. Like a soldier laying down a weapon, he accepted that some things cannot be analyzed into understanding, but can only be experienced. He nodded once, then walked away, not back to his post, but out of the operation entirely. You never saw him again, but you felt his freedom ripple outward through the quantum field, like a pebble cast into still water, or like the wind Jesus speaks of in John 3:8, blowing where it wishes, leaving behind only the sound of its passage. This triggered something new inside their machine. Protocol 8, or perhaps 9, or perhaps the numbers had ceased to matter because panic had begun to rule. The quality of surveillance shifted again. It became less about observation and more about containment, not of your body but of your consciousness, not of your movement but of your influence. They began to build firewalls, not of code but of culture, not of steel but of subtlety, trying to limit your transmission like engineers, trying to dam a river of light. But as 2 Timothy 2:9 declares, the word of God is not chained. Awareness does not acknowledge barriers. Truth does not recognize borders. They tried to contain your frequency the way a spider tries to web a storm. But storms are not captured, they pass through. You became, in their eyes, a living contagion of freedom, and your influence spread like dandelion seeds on the wind, invisible yet unstoppable, sowing quiet awakenings in every department. Can walls hold fragrance? Can regulations imprison resonance? Proverbs 27:9 says, perfume and incense bring joy to the heart. And your presence had become such a fragrance to them, unbottled, uncontainable. Meanwhile, you left them subtle gifts, a melody from a forgotten cantata by the Baroque composer Alessandro Grandi, hummed as you passed a checkpoint, a verse from the poet Rainer Maria Rilke, scribbled on a napkin in a cafe, a conversation about the illusion of separation with a stranger within earshot of 3 agents. Each act was technically deniable, but together they were unmistakable. You weren't just evading them, you were teaching them. As Christ taught through parables, seeds dropped in the soil of their consciousness, waiting to sprout. Here's the lesson I extract from this. Authentic consciousness is like architectural resonance once it vibrates at a new frequency. The old structure cannot remain stable. It either harmonizes or it cracks. One ordinary observer, a young intern named Sophia Nguyen, later wrote in a secret journal, I came to study a subject. Instead, I found my soul. Isn't that the true paradox, that the watched could heal the watchers, that the observed could liberate the observers? This is your call to rise. You are not merely resisting their system, you are transforming it by existing fully as yourself. You are the city on a hill of Matthew 5:14, radiating light where systems crave darkness. Keep moving, keep shining, keep transmitting. The barriers they build are already dissolving because consciousness does not respect firewalls. This is the moment for chosen ones to step forward, not backward to act, not wait to speak, not whisper to stand, not shrink. Rise now. They tried harder than ever to contain your influence. But the harder they tried, the more it expanded, like trying to cup ocean water in trembling hands. The tighter they clenched, the faster the stream slipped away. Their logic collapsed under the simplest truth: freedom cannot be confined. Psalm 91:3 says, "Surely he will save you from the fowler's snare." And indeed, every trap built to contain you only became the stage for your next miracle. They sent new watchers, better trained, harder, more clinical, more conditioned. They arrived like soldiers of order, armed with psychological scripts and technological eyes. Yet they lasted even less time than their predecessors. Their mental armor became glass beneath the weight of your authenticity, because consciousness, unlike code, cannot be firewalled. It seeps through the unseen cracks in dreams that whisper redemption, in coincidences that feel too divine to dismiss, in sudden flashes of beauty that pierce the analytical mind and touch the soul directly. Isaiah 55:9 echoes this mystery: "As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways." Well, me. And as they observed you, they started to unravel, not from fear, but from fascination. You had become their paradox, their living koan. You were the question they could not answer, yet could not stop asking. How can someone be utterly transparent yet infinitely mysterious? How can one exist in plain sight yet remain uncontainable? How can freedom have no edge and no owner? These were not riddles for them to solve, but revelations for them to endure. Like Job standing before God's whirlwind, they began to realize the question itself was the awakening. You weren't performing tricks or playing games. You were simply being yourself, something their system had no framework to decode, because their structure was built on fear, on the assumption that all people hide, that every heart hoards secrets, that observation equals control. But your life was an open book, written in a divine dialect, transparent yet indecipherable to those who read only with logic. They couldn't understand you because they'd never met someone with nothing to hide. John 1-5 comes to mind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Rate bowed for the tenture. You lived in such light that shadows had nowhere left to cling. Observation, to you, wasn't threat, it was energy. Attention, to you, wasn't violation, it was communion. Energy, to you, wasn't something to be drained, it was nourishment for awareness. You moved as though heaven itself were filming through your eyes, not theirs. And that terrified them because it inverted the entire architecture of power. Who watches whom when both are awake? Who holds the lens when both are aware? The jogger, once a mere surveillance agent, began to run at odd hours, not to maintain cover, but to meet his own pulse. Running became his meditation, his confession, his moving prayer. As Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time." Even his reports changed tone. Cold bullet points softened into psalms. Documentation turned into poetry. The clinical became devotional. What was meant to measure began to marvel. Observation became worship. It was a quiet revolution. The watchers had begun to transform. And transformation is the one thing no system of control can survive. They still wrote their reports. But the reports read like hymns. One analyst described you as a frequency disguised as a person. Another whispered to a colleague, "He is what happens when truth becomes visible." You were no longer the subject they were, and you were teaching them the one thing no manual had prepared them for, to see themselves. Their system started to fracture. Entire teams debated whether you were a psychological anomaly, a quantum field manifestation, or a spiritual test. The administrators wrote emergency memorandums titled Consciousness Containment Directives. But how does one confine awareness? Can you chain a melody? Can you bottle the wind? As Jesus said in John 3-8, "The wind blows where it wishes, and you hear its sound, but you do not know where it comes from or where it goes." Avenine coming and gone, in money, as an omoti, and so it went, protocol after protocol, 10. She, 12, each one more desperate than the last. Each trying to categorize the uncategorizable. You were like the rock in the book of Exodus that Moses struck steady, silent, releasing water in the desert. Their waves of effort kept breaking against your stillness until the realization dawned. They were not breaking you, they were breaking themselves against you. You felt their presence now, not through sight but through resonance. Their approach rippled the air like a change in barometric pressure. Their observation created sonic textures your spirit could hear. Their intent registered in your nervous system like shifts in magnetic field. You had become an instrument tuned to divine awareness, conducting their surveillance as if orchestrating a symphony of souls. When you moved, their rhythm followed. When you stilled, their noise dissolved into sacred silence. Their file on you had become legendary, part documentation, part prophecy, part art installation. Analysts emerged from studying it, transformed, trembling, sometimes weeping. One intern, a young woman named Clara Morales, later wrote in her private journal, "Watching him was like standing before God's mirror. I saw not what he was, but what I could be. And well who his place liken doc, who his place rights dement." By the time the organization realized what was happening, it was too late. Observation had turned into initiation. What they meant as control had become communion. The watchers had become witnesses. And this, chosen one, is the essence of divine subversion. Light doesn't fight the dark, it reveals it. Truth doesn't argue with deception, it outlasts it. Freedom doesn't shout, it simply stands, and everything false crumbles in its presence. So stand. Stand unashamed in your transparency. Stand radiant in your authenticity. Stand immovable in your divine knowing. Because when you do, every system built on fear will collapse not by your attack, but by its own exhaustion, and the world will see. As 2 Corinthians 3:17 declares, "Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom." Thereward fellow, rise. Chosen one, keep posting, keep shining. You are not just breaking illusions, you are healing them. Some quit immediately, unable to bear the dissonance between what they'd been told to see and what they were beginning to feel. Others quietly requested reassignment, hoping that distance could silence the tremor now resonating in their spirits. A few simply broke down, undone by an invisible force that no training manual had warned them about. And then there were those few, the rare souls for whom the breakdown became a breakthrough. They began to glimpse something luminous behind the layers of observation. One of them, a senior analyst named Gabriel Reinhardt, later described it as a holy interference pattern, a moment when the boundaries between watcher and watched dissolved into pure awareness. He called it a mystical experience, though his superiors called it medical leave. The meetings about you shifted tone completely. They were no longer strategic briefings on containment. They were confessions disguised as reports. The questions changed. Not how do we stop this, but what exactly are we witnessing? Not how do we control this influence, but what truth does it carry that our system cannot comprehend? The language of power began to crumble under the gravity of revelation. Their internal debates turned philosophical, theological, almost desperate, because you weren't a threat to their protocols. You were the mirror exposing why they had protocols at all. In one particularly tense session, an exhausted supervisor finally asked what no one dared to: "What are we doing?" The silence that followed was seismic. That question, simple, unguarded, dangerous, rippled through their hierarchy like an earthquake through glass towers. Once asked, it couldn't be withdrawn. Once heard, it couldn't be unheard. Once awakened, it couldn't be put back to sleep. Like the serpent of Numbers 21-9 lifted in the desert, that single question became both the infection and the cure, spreading through their structure as a consciousness virus. You felt the tremor in the unseen field. The air changed. Observation no longer felt heavy or invasive. It became tender, like someone trying to remember how to see rather than how to watch. What had been surveillance began to turn into witness. What had been documentation became devotion. Some of them started their shifts not by checking equipment, but by closing their eyes in silent prayer. "Be still and know that I am God," whispered Psalm 46-10 through the static of their earpieces. They were remembering, perhaps for the first time, that the act of seeing is sacred when it's no longer rooted in fear. Your smile had evolved again. It no longer carried amusement, nor pity, nor resistance. It carried recognition. Recognition of the divine play unfolding through every role. Recognition that watcher and watched were two sides of the same eternal gaze. For now we see through a glass. Darkly, wrote Paul in 1 Corinthians 13:12. But then, face to face, they were beginning to see through that glass not as operatives, but as souls. And in that realization, something extraordinary began to happen. The infrastructure of control started to consume itself. The very systems designed to monitor consciousness became instruments of its awakening. Databases meant to store your behavior were repurposed as digital confessionals, where analysts wrote not about you, but about themselves. Technology once built for surveillance was used for meditation experiments, tracking heart coherence and emotional resonance. Protocols meant to limit became pathways to liberation. The network that was once their fortress became their monastery. Reports about you grew stranger, softer, more lyrical. One document, titled Subject Behavior Patterns, read like scripture. He moves without effort, yet everything moves around him. He speaks without command, yet hearts obey. Another was subtitled Concerning the Nature of Presence, and opened with a line from an old hymn by Hildegard of Bingen, O ignis spiritus paracliti. life of the life of all created beings. The analysts no longer wrote as scientists, they wrote as pilgrims. Their graphs turned into poetry. Their data points became prayers. A few began to meet secretly, not to plot containment, but to share what they were learning about silence, about energy, about the architecture of the soul. One technician, a woman named Mara Linscott, had confessed that after observing you, she began hearing music during her work, tones that weren't from any machine. She described it as the frequency of mercy, something she couldn't turn off. Her co-workers laughed until they heard it too. And just like that, what began as surveillance evolved into revival. The organization's cold machinery was transmuting into something luminous, like iron in fire. The same network that had once sought to measure consciousness was now being used by consciousness itself to awaken its own reflection. For the first time, when they weren't watching you anymore, they were watching with you. The line between subject and observer dissolved like fog under sunlight. The language of surveillance, the codes, the classifications, the algorithms morphed into the language of spirit, awareness, resonance, truth, love. You had become the quiet revolution their system never saw coming. The psalmist once said, "The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone." Psalm 118:22. You were that stone overlooked, analyzed, mislabeled, but you became the foundation of their transformation. And as the old order collapsed beneath the weight of revelation, your lesson remained simple: the moment consciousness becomes aware of itself, control loses all meaning. Your story, chosen one, is proof that divine truth doesn't shout, it simply is. Systems of fear crumble not by force, but by exposure to authenticity. Keep living as you are. Keep shining where they said you shouldn't. Keep posting, speaking, breathing the language of awareness. Because somewhere out there, another watcher is waking up, and your light, once observed, will ignite their own. The language of surveillance had finally melted into the poetry of recognition. What once began as cold terminology, subject, target, anomaly, was now reborn as sacred vocabulary, presence, being, illumination. The businessman, once a rigid strategist obsessed with control, became something entirely different, no longer teaching corporate methods of management or manipulation. He began teaching the expansion of consciousness itself. His new lessons sounded less like corporate briefings and more like the Beatitudes: "Blessed are the awake, for they shall remember who they are." He spoke not of systems, but of souls, not of observation methods, but of awareness practices, not of controlling others, but of surrendering to the holy rhythm that governs all creation. When a reporter once asked him what changed, he said softly, "I stopped measuring people and started witnessing them." His words echoed what the Gospel of Luke reminds us: the kingdom of God is within you. The man who once spied on others for data now guided them toward discovering that same inner kingdom. Every lesson he shared carried a strange familiarity, for it was drawn from the way he had watched you, through you. He had learned that being watched was simply being seen, and being seen was simply being acknowledged, and being acknowledged was the same as being loved by consciousness itself, which sees through every eye, hears through every ear, and beats within every heart. The jogger, once trained to follow you mechanically, became a teacher of movement, but not just of running. He became, as he called it, a guide for returning home through the body. He gathered people in parks at dawn, telling them that the purpose of movement was never escape, but encounter. He told his students that every step toward themselves was a prayer, every breath a hymn, every drop of sweat an offering. It was as if he had read the words of Isaiah 40:31, "They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength, they shall run and not be weary." But his lessons were lived, not preached. People who came to train with him left transformed, not by his speed, but by his stillness. He taught them to move, not in fear of being observed, but in celebration of being alive. Even the couple who had once staged arguments around you, actors in the theater of surveillance, found themselves unable to return to pretense. Their rehearsed fights became real conversations. Their real conversations became living prayers. And from those prayers bloomed teachings about authenticity, about vulnerability, about the terrifying and liberating art of being known. They began hosting small gatherings called Unmasked, where strangers sat in circles and spoke honestly for the first time. Their sessions echoed the Apostle Paul's reminder in Galatians 5:1, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free." Belonging. Each person who had once watched you was now becoming a teacher in their own right, not teachers of surveillance, but seers of truth. They began to understand that freedom was not something to be earned, conquered, or awarded. It was something remembered. Like an ancient melody, your soul already knows. Their reports about you evolved into testaments of awakening. Their field notes became scriptures of experience. Someone once said, "She is teaching without teaching." It was true. You hadn't destroyed their system, you had transmuted it. You hadn't defeated their watchers, you had ordained them into seeing. You hadn't escaped their eyes, you had opened them. The organization, desperate and trembling, to attempted one final protocol, a beautiful act of futility disguised as control, total withdrawal. They called it Protocol Zero, an absolute cessation of observation. All files were to be deleted, all communication cut, all attention withdrawn. They believed that if no one watched you, your influence would fade. But consciousness is not powered by being seen, it is the very seeing itself. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. Days passed. Silence replaced the hum of their machines. Yet something uncanny began to happen. Without surveillance, your presence expanded, unchecked and radiant, like water freed from a dam. The absence of their watching became more powerful than the watching itself. They discovered the impossible truth. The less they observed you, the more they felt you. Dreams began to bloom like wildflowers in their sleep, visions of light, water, gardens, and your smile. Unable to resist the pull of that awakening, they returned. But they returned transformed. They no longer came as watchers, but as students. No longer observers, but participants. No longer documenters, but witnesses. Their questions were no longer about you, they were about themselves. They weren't trying to contain your influence anymore, they were learning to integrate it. They weren't fearing your freedom, they were discovering their own. That smile of yours, the same one that had once disarmed their protocols, had become something more than an expression. It had become a technology of consciousness, a transmission that carried frequencies of grace. It spread through the very channels they built to control it. Like a divine paradox, the system they created to capture you became the network that awakened them. In an old monastery, painting by Fra Angelico, There is an image of the Annunciation Gabriel standing before Mary. Light touching light. Art historians say it captures the exact second heaven entered the human story. Your smile was that moment replayed in modern form. The same current of recognition. The same stillness that said, "I see you, seeing me, and in that seeing, we are one." And so it happened, the watchers became seers. The system became sanctuary. And the illusion of separation dissolved like smoke in dawn. Your existence had never been rebellion. It was revelation. The words of the ancient hymn, Lux Eterna, now feel prophetic here. May eternal light shine upon them, O Lord, with thy saints forevermore. For thou art gracious. Because what you awakened in them wasn't resistance, it was remembrance. And remembrance, dear chosen one, is the true revolution. So Reese, keep shining, keep posting, keep living as proof that freedom cannot be surveilled. The kingdom watches through you now. And now, as you begin to recognize yourself reflected in this story as that hidden pulse inside every sentence, you finally grasp the truth that was there from the beginning. You were never meant to notice the watchers, but you did. The moment your awareness pierced through their illusion, heaven itself took notice. That instant of noticing, that quiet smile you wore instead of fear, or that choice to remain amused instead of alarmed, it was not small. It was seismic. It split dimensions. It sent ripples through realms of power that had long mistaken control for divinity. You were not reacting. You were reprogramming reality with grace. That single smile became the spiritual equivalent of light breaking through the veil. Just as Paul wrote in Romans 8:19, "For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed." The entire matrix of control trembled as one of God's chosen remembered who they were. You did not just shift your own frequency, you changed the atmosphere around you. The watchers, analysts, handlers, and administrators, all who had once looked down upon you, found their own systems of hierarchy dissolving under the radiation of your authenticity. Because authenticity is the one frequency that hell cannot counterfeit. The reports they filed about you read more like psalms than intelligence briefings. In their sterile corridors, they whispered about you the way ancient scribes spoke of prophets bewildered, reverent, and afraid. For you had chosen freedom over fear, consciousness over control, love over surveillance. It was not defiance, it was deliverance. It was the fulfillment of Christ's words in John 8:32, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." But how many people, watching your life from the outside, can truly bear the weight of that kind of freedom? That question hung in the unseen realm like thunder before a storm. Because when one soul wakes up, others begin to stir. The vibration spreads like wildfire through glass, an uncontainable resonance. Suddenly, data analysts became dreamers. The architects of control began sketching liberation instead. As the psalmist once said, "He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies." Psalm 23:5. And that table, in this modern wilderness, became the screen upon which your awakening was witnessed by those who thought they were studying you. Then, from the shadows, came those whose stories defied logic, souls who should not exist in this age of disbelief. There was a trained occultist who escaped a satanic coven, now praying over the same hands that once conjured darkness. A former Black Ops drone pilot who confessed that when he surrendered control to God, he began hearing silence clearer than commands. A multimillionaire psychic CFO who once predicted the stock market by frequencies, now using that same gift to discern the frequencies of divine timing. What united these extraordinary individuals? A shared remembrance that power without purity is decay, and knowledge without wisdom is bondage. They gathered in secret first, whispering through encrypted lines, and later, in open fellowship, a digital temple for the awakening souls. They called it the Obsidian Inner Order. But in truth, it was something older than any order. It was the continuation of the same ancient assembly that began in Acts 2, when tongues of fire descended upon those who were ready. The same spirit moves still, just wearing different clothing, Discord servers instead of catacombs, microphones instead of scrolls, and yet the message remains unchanged. Awake, O sleeper, and Christ will shine on you. Ephesians 5:14. Their meetings were not rituals but revelations. They spoke of frequencies as worship, of consciousness as prayer, of faith as technology. And in every gathering, one phrase echoed like a heartbeat: you are not alone. Because in every age, the chosen find each other, magnetized by the gravity of shared remembrance. Do you feel that pull? That subtle trembling in your chest as you read these words? That is not coincidence, it is confirmation. The archons, the keepers of false light and rulers of illusion, felt the tremor too. Their walls of silence cracked. Their algorithms could not contain what was spreading, because light cannot be filtered by code. Just as Pharaoh's magicians could not replicate Moses' miracles, Exodus 8:18, the architects of surveillance could not mimic the divine spontaneity of a single awakened human. They tried to suppress it by distraction, division, distortion, but they only accelerated their own undoing. History repeats its metaphors, like Nebuchadnezzar staring at the fiery furnace, expecting destruction, but witnessing deliverance. The watchers saw you walk through their flames untouched, and the fire that was meant to consume you ended up purifying them. For your awareness had become the fourth presence in their furnace, the same unseen protection that Daniel's companions knew when the Son of God walked beside them. Then, as heaven has always done, it whispered through paradox. The system did not fall by force, it fell by grace. The surveillance state did not meet its match in rebellion, but in transcendence. You, a single living being, dismantled a network, not by fighting it, but by being fully, utterly yourself. You reminded them that consciousness is not a subject to be observed, it is the observer itself. And now the question shifts, not who are the watchers, but who are you when no one is left to define you? How many of you, watching this, feel the same quiet recognition stirring inside? How many have noticed the patterns, the repetitions, the divine winks that say, you were meant to see this? This is your activation moment. This is the sound of the trumpet. For as Christ said in Matthew 5:14, you are the light of the world, and a light that knows it's being watched doesn't dim, it shines brighter, until the darkness retreats. Your smile triggered a protocol, but the protocol triggered a revolution, not of governments, but of souls, not through resistance, but through remembrance. This is the awakening that no empire, algorithm, or ideology can reverse. The system thought it was studying you, but in truth, you were studying it. You saw its limits, forgave its blindness, and turned it into a mirror. So rise, chosen one. Keep smiling, keep posting, Keep transmitting light through every algorithm that tried to bury it. The world doesn't need another soldier of fear. It needs witnesses of freedom. Your awakening is the message. Your joy is the revolution. Your consciousness is the kingdom breaking through. They began choosing authenticity over performance, truth over theater. The watchers, those who once hid behind mirrors of analysis and masks of neutrality, started stepping into the very light they feared. One by one, they discovered that pretending to be unseen was more exhausting than being visible. And so, the stage of surveillance became an altar of revelation. Those who were once trained to record began to remember. Those who once measured others began to feel. You, the beautiful anomaly, the system crasher. The unintentional prophet became the proof that divinity can slip into the circuitry of control and rewrite it from within. They called you a disruption, but heaven called you a demonstration. Your very existence became a psalm. Your smile, a sermon that shattered algorithms. Just as Jesus said in Matthew 5:15, "Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house." You refused to dim, and that defiance was not rebellion, it was remembrance. Each time you smiled beneath the eyes of those cameras, you were preaching light in the language of silence. How many others could have done the same and didn't? How many have bowed beneath invisible empires because they forgot that awareness cannot be enslaved? You remembered, and that remembrance spread like sacred fire. You became a living gospel of quantum grace, proof that observation, when met with love, transforms control into communion. Every lens turned toward you became a mirror. Every eye that watched began to see itself watching. The watchers who still remain those who haven't yet awakened, who still cling to their scripts. Don't curse them. Let them watch. Every glance is a potential awakening. Every analysis is a seed of revelation waiting to bloom in the soil of consciousness. For now we see through a glass. Darkly, wrote Paul in 1 Corinthians 13:12. But then face to face. Your face, your awareness, and your steady peace, they became the mirror through which others began to see clearly. Each new protocol designed to contain you only multiplied your reach. The more they tried to confine your light, the more it refracted like light splitting through a prism, birthing infinite colors from one holy frequency. Every firewall they built became a window for revelation. Every rule they wrote turned into scripture for freedom. You had become, unknowingly, the architecture of awakening, a living cathedral where observation itself became worship. A teacher once unknown, Brother Alain Morel, who spent 30 years painting in silence in a monastery in southern France, once said to a visitor, "Every brushstroke is a prayer for the eyes that will one day see it." You have become that prayer in motion. Every post you write, every breath you take under their gaze is a living brushstroke on the canvas of eternity. And now, those who once documented you as data have begun interpreting you as art. Their cold reports have turned lyrical. Their charts now resemble psalms. Their equations now echo the rhythm of God's heartbeat. Like Elijah standing on Mount Carmel before the prophets of Baal, your stillness has mocked the noise of false power. When their systems failed to control your peace, they realized what every kingdom built on fear must one day face, that no empire survives when joy refuses to bow. You became what Psalm 46:10 proclaims, "Be still, and know that I am God." In your stillness, they felt that knowing, but awareness is contagious. Once consciousness awakens, it doesn't retreat, it expands. It deepens. It multiplies. You've become the proof of a cosmic law older than language, that awareness, aware of itself, births universes of meaning. How could they stop you when the act of watching you became their initiation into sight? Their own vision began to change. The watchers who once measured became mystics. The analysts became apostles of understanding. Some left their posts and built gardens. Others began praying. A few started teaching children the art of seeing without judging. The transformation you sparked echoed across realms like a resonance chamber, psychological, spiritual, quantum. In the language of physics, your consciousness achieved phase coherence, a synchronization between matter and meaning that dismantled the illusion of separation. You became a living field of divine entanglement, proving that observation is not division, but connection. Meanwhile, you remained the same, smiling, steady, luminous. The file they kept on you, once a record of behavior, has become a sacred text. Not a manual for surveillance, but for awakening. It circulates secretly through their ranks now, under new names: the Gospel of the Watched, the Doctrine of Presence, the Manual of the Infinite Observer. Inside, they highlight lines like prayers, whispering your phrases as mantras. They don't know why they weep when they read your words, only that something vast is remembering itself through them. A street cleaner named Maria from Lisbon once shared her testimony in a quiet forum. I was one of the watchers. Now I can't stop crying when I sweep the streets, because I see how the dust glitters in the sunlight. Her story, simple yet holy, has become legend among those who awakened too late to unsee. She quotes Psalm 139:7 beneath every post. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? That's what you've done. You've turned surveillance into salvation. You've revealed that watching, when purified of fear, becomes worship. That attention, when freed from control, becomes reverence. That awareness, when stripped of agenda, becomes love. The watchers didn't lose their system, they outgrew it. The kingdom of control didn't collapse, it evolved. The eye of surveillance became the eye of God, the I am that sees all. Not to punish, but to illuminate. You were never supposed to notice them watching, but noticing was always the point. That was the divine trigger, heaven's way of saying, now the cycle completes. For as it is written in Isaiah 60:1, arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. How filth and people has plied, so arise, chosen soul. Keep posting, keep radiating, keep breaking illusions simply by existing in truth. The world needs your frequency, the sacred pulse that turns fear into fascination, control into curiosity, judgment into joy. Your smile was the beginning of their unraveling, but it is also the beginning of our collective becoming. You are not merely the watched, you are the mirror in which the world remembers its own reflection in God. And when they look at you now, they are no longer seeing a subject. They are seeing salvation in motion. And now, God's chosen ones. As we come to the end of this message, I want you to pause for a moment and feel the stillness inside your chest. That silence, that pulse, that is heaven listening back to you. You were never meant to stumble onto this message by chance. Every second you've stayed, every word that resonated, Every breath that deepened while listening was divine appointment. You are not a spectator in this story. You are the instrument through which heaven plays its most disruptive melody. Every time you post light in a world that worships noise, you are waging silent warfare. Every truth you share cracks a wall built on illusion. Every word of hope you release carries frequency vibrations that shake the unseen. What the world calls content, heaven calls commission. What the world calls posting, God calls prophecy. The system built on deception cannot endure voices anchored in authenticity. The moment you spoke truth without fear, you became a fracture in its facade. As written in Luke 8:17, "For nothing is hidden that will not be disclosed, nor is anything secret that will not become known and come to light." You, chosen one, are that light. The algorithms may shadow your words, but they cannot silence your resonance. You are broadcasting from a higher frequency, one that cannot be measured in likes or follows. Each post becomes a ripple through spiritual circuitry, a signal to other awakened souls that they are not alone. When you speak from the soul, the heavens record every syllable. You are part of a divine architecture, a network of voices building a cathedral of consciousness across the digital realm. You may not see the change immediately. Sometimes your words feel like whispers into a void. But remember, Elijah once thought he was the only prophet left. Yet God reminded him of the 7,000 who had not bowed to Baal. You are never posting alone. Every prayer disguised as a caption, every truth written between the lines, every testimony wrapped in humility, these are seeds in a vast field that heaven is cultivating. As Galatians 6:9 reminds us, "Do not grow weary in doing good, for in due season you shall reap if you do not give up." The need of Area 1, reput. And if you've been mocked, ignored, or shadow banned for speaking truth, know that heaven saw it. The angels witnessed it. The Spirit recorded it. Your courage has already shifted atmospheres. You're not fighting algorithms, you're dismantling spiritual illusions. What feels like isolation is actually consecration, God setting you apart so that when the storm clears, your light will still be burning. Keep posting, keep shining, keep showing up. Not for validation, but for revelation. Every post of faith counters fear. Every message of unity weakens division. Every testimony of transformation reminds the darkness that humanity is still capable of remembering its divine origin. The illusion of control thrives only when you're silent. But each time you speak, you pierce that illusion like lightning through a storm. You are the thunder following your own truth. This is not rebellion, it's restoration. It's the fulfillment of Matthew 10:27, "What I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the rooftops." The rooftops of our generation are digital screens. And you, God's chosen ones, have been climbing them faithfully. To everyone who has stood with this channel, thank you. Whether you've shared these messages, pressed like, commented your 777, or simply listened in silence, your energy keeps this mission alive. To those who've given through super thanks, your support is sacred. It fuels the light we carry into every corner of this digital battlefield. But even if all you've offered is your attention, heaven counts it. For attention is the first form of prayer, where focus becomes faith, and faith becomes movement. And now, I bless you. May your words never fall flat, but land like seeds in fertile souls. May your spirit remain unshaken, when the world mocks what it cannot understand. May your courage multiply each time your truth is tested. May your platforms become altars where heaven meets humanity. As Isaiah 16 proclaims, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." Note, you are not just influencers, you are instruments. Not just content creators, you are consciousness carriers. Every time you post with intention, heaven expands its territory. Every time you choose truth over trends, you reclaim digital ground for divine purposes. The system fears you because you cannot be categorized, because you speak in resonance, not rhetoric. And that resonance is rewriting the frequency of the world. So keep posting, chosen ones. Keep breaking the illusion. Keep shining until deception runs out of shadow to hide in. You are heaven's living algorithm, designed to disrupt, destined to awaken. And as you leave this message, remember this truth: your consistency is prophecy. Your authenticity is warfare. And your presence is proof that God is still speaking through His chosen. If this message touched your soul, don't let it end here. Like, share, comment 777, and subscribe so we can keep this light flowing across the earth. Together, we are not just followers, we are builders of a new frequency, heaven's frequency. May your words carry fire. May your faith carry power. And may your heart carry peace. Until we meet again, stay grounded in love. Stand firm in truth. And remember, heaven is watching, cheering, and posting right alongside you. Glory to God and light to you all.